has attained Buddhahood while still in the body. This is Buddhist Books Podcast, episode 265, Shingon Buddhism, part 6, in which I pick up right where I left off in Shingon Buddhism, part 5. So in the Shingon Buddhism portion of Buddhist Books Podcast, we are reading the Matrix and Diamond World Mandalas in Shingon Buddhism with a little light commentary when it feels appropriate. If you would like to start at the beginning of the Shingon Buddhism episodes, the playlist is right here. You can click there. You can start at the beginning, go to the middle, whatever you would like to do. All right. So, while I'm taking out my reading glasses, I'll give Editor Edward something to do. So normally here on Buddhist Books Podcast, we focus on pre-sectarian early Buddhism, which, can be said to be slightly distinct from Theravada. And both of those things are called Hinayana by the Mahayana folks. And, of course, Theravada, early Buddhism, and Mahayana laid the foundation for Vajrayana, of which there are two forms on Buddhist Books Podcast, the Tibetan form and the Shingon Japanese form. And then we also read some Dogen. That's Dogen. He's there standing in for representing Zen, which is also called Chan. But as soon as Dogen was involved, it was most certainly called Zen, because that was how he pronounced it. Anyway, all right, now I can see, and so I'm ready to begin. Let's hit it. Do we do music on this one? Let's play a little music. All right. So this is section 3. I don't know if it's like chapter 3. It's just there's a 3. It says page 33, 3. And the title of the section is The Three Universals and Practice. In his analysis of the 10 stages of mind, Kobo Daishi says that while the Avatamsaka, or Qigong, holds to the theoretical concept of the unobstructed penetration of all dharmas, in practice, it distinguishes the dharmas of body and the dharmas of mind. Its method proceeds by way of meditations that do not involve the body, but withdraw the mind from the objects of bodily sense. And it seeks an awakening that pertains exclusively to consciousness, and in which the body and all physical phenomena are transcended. The Qigong awakening is attained solely in the mind. By contrast, Shingon practice is wholly congruent with its doctrine of the mutual interpenetration of mind and body. Esoteric method, with a capital E and a capital M, proceeds by way of rituals that involve the body as well as the mind. It employs techniques of meditation that do not withdraw the mind from the objects of bodily sense. And it seeks an awakening that is simultaneously psychic and somatic. An, quote, attainment of Buddhahood in the body, end quote. The direct realization of the non-duality of the body, speech, and mind, of the being, with the three mysteries of the Tathagata. There are three stages in the perfection of Buddhahood in the body. It is firstly, quote, possessed in principle, end quote. Then it is, quote, attained in kaji, end quote. And finally, it is fully actualized. Quote, principally possessed, end quote, Buddhahood is the awakening that lies innate but unrealized within the body and mind of each being. All beings. Oh, there's a footnote. I thought that was for... Principally possessed Buddhahood is the Shingon equivalent of what non-esoteric Buddhism terms original or fundamental awakening. The Buddha nature immanent in all sentient beings. When quickened by practice, original awakening is originated awakening. Principally possessed Buddhahood is the cause of the attainment of the following stage, the, quote, manifest perfection of Buddhahood, end quote, which is its, quote, fruit, end quote, or effect. Okay, continuing. All beings presently possess Buddhahood and abide in non-dual conjunction with the Dharma body of the Tathagata. They dwell perpetually in the, quote, wondrous realm of the three universals, end quote. The, quote, majestic abode of spontaneity, end quote. The eternal, immutable, and placeless realm that is, quote, not to be found anywhere in the 10 worlds of men and sages, end quote. Blinded by ignorance, however, they are unable to perceive this immanent and all-permeating presence of awakening, and believe Buddhahood to be remote. In the second stage, the, quote, attainment of Buddhahood in kaji, end quote. The innate but unrealized Buddhahood is quickened by practice. Entering the pathway of Shingon method, the sadhaka perseveres in the performance of rituals until he at last attains the, quote, samadhi of union, end quote. Yoga samadhi. Union is the English translation of yoga. Samadhi doesn't have a very good translation, but samadhi is the 8th limb of yoga, if you were interested in that sort of thing. Okay. With the Honzon. The word Honzon is literally fundamental honored one, referring to the Buddha or Bodhisattva enshrined in the central place in the ritual and to whom the ritual is directed. Okay. A momentary entry into this samadhi, quote, originates, end quote, or awakens the principally possessed Buddhahood. In the instant of entering the samadhi of union, the sadhaka's eye of the mind is opened, and he sees the true form of all the dharmas. There's a footnote on the eye of the mind. The eye of the mind is the eye of the Buddha. It is distinguished from the fleshly eye, which perceives gross forms, and the divine eye, which perceives subtle forms and the formless. references to the eye of the mind or heart also appear in the exoteric literature. All right, I'll keep reading. Thus awakened, he is established on the, quote, throne of identity, end quote. Entry into the samadhi of union is the attainment of kaji. In its usual Buddhist usage, this term translates Sanskrit adhisthana, basis, seat, or power. But in Shingon, it has a more specific significance, one that can be viewed at two levels. Firstly, at the level of relative truth, and as perceived by the unawakened, for whom the mind of man and the light of Buddha are separate. Ka, the first character in the compound, means to increase. The second character, ji, means to support. And the compound kaji refers to a reciprocal relationship of, quote, increasing and supporting, end quote. I'm glad they explained kaji, because he used the word several times, and I was wondering if they were going to explain it. When the sadhaka, presumably that's you, if you enter upon this journey, correctly performs a ritual, he is, quote, increased, end quote, by the Buddha's power, and in turn, quote, supports, end quote, that power, in the manner of a seat or base. Kobo Daishi compares the relation of ka and ji to that of light shining on water. Quote, kaji refers to the great compassion of the Tathagata and the mind of faith, or shinjin, of sentient beings. Ka means the reflection of the Buddha Sun in the water of the minds of sentient beings, and ji means the sadhaka's mind that retains the Buddha Sun, end quote. The light of the Buddha Sun, Mahavairocana, meaning the great sun, is ka, and the mind of the sadhaka, reflecting the Buddha light in the manner of a body of still water, is ji. Secondly, at the higher level of truth, and as perceived by the Buddhas, for whom the mind and the body of the sentient being are wholly merged with the mind and body of Mahavairocana, ka and ji are not distinct, but interfused, so that the light and the water on which it shines are mutually pervading. At this higher level of understanding, kaji is a two-way interfusion of the Buddha and man, and thus the term kaji is used almost synonymously with yuga, from the Sanskrit yoga, meaning union. The attainment of this union with the Tathagata's Dharma body is a realization of the total interpenetration of all things. It is a kaji of the sentient being and the Buddha, of beings and all phenomenal dharmas, of each dharma with every other dharma, and of the Buddha with all other Buddhas. The, quote, attainment of Buddhahood in kaji, end quote, lasts only so long as the ritualist remains in the samadhi of union. While in the state of Kaji, his mind and body are those of Buddha. But when he returns from that state, he is once more an ordinary man, quote, whose mind swarms with distracting thoughts, end quote. By an assiduous repetition of the rituals, the sadhaka nurtures the samadhi of union and extends its duration until it finally becomes permanent, and he is in union with the Hanzon at all times. Quote, while walking, sitting, standing, and lying down. End quote. His every action is an action of the Tathagata's body. His every utterance is the Tathagata's speech, and his every thought is the functioning of the Tathagata's mind. This is the attainment of the third and final stage, the, quote, actualized attainment of Buddhahood, end quote, in which the body and mind of the ritualist wholly merge with the body and mind of the Buddha, and with the form and consciousness of the total Dharma world. He has attained Buddhahood while still in the body. The attainment of Kaji is an interpenetration of the sadhaka's body and mind with the Tathagata's body and consciousness. It is attained in the body as well as the mind, and it involves no withdrawal of the senses from their objects. Those familiar with the 8 limbs of yoga, you can skip that limb. Better safe than sorry. Maybe leave it in. The Vajrayana Sutra indicates the manner of this simultaneously mental and somatic merging. Having described the rituals for laying out the perfected body assembly, the sutra goes on to describe how the Akarya is to enter it and effect Kaji with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas depicted there. When he enters the mandala laid out on the ground, the Akarya also enters a mandala that he has laid out in the field of his mind. The external, physical mandala has an interior mental counterpart. The aim of the rite is the simultaneous realization of the external mandala perceived by the eyes of sense and the interior mandala perceived by the eye of the mind. The contemplative eye that by the power of meditation sees through the external appearances of phenomena to their true form, their immutable and eternal suchness. Blindfolded, so that he cannot see the images, the Akarya enters the mandala and recites dharanis, requesting the Bodhisattva Vajrasattva, or Kongosata, diamond being, who personifies the indwelling Bodhicitta, or Bodai Shin in Japanese, to open his eye of the mind, the, quote, supreme diamond eye, the eye of all, end quote. If, says the sutra, the faith of the Akarya is firm and unwavering, and his powers of meditation are sufficiently developed, his eye of the mind will open, removing the blindfold so that he can view the images of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas depicted in the mandala. The Akarya now proceeds to contemplate each of them in turn. making its hand gesture, or mudra, or ingei, the Japanese word, and reciting its dharani, he gazes at the image and at the same time inwardly visualizes its true form with the eye of the mind. His bodily eyes view the mutable and impermanent form, and his eye of the mind simultaneously views the form's immutable and permanent suchness, the sensible form of the image and its true body are merged. Proceeding in this manner, the Akarya enters into Kaji with each of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. He merges the mandala with his body and mind and thus realizes the innate Dharma body of knowledge. The sutra says that to realize the interior mandala is to satisfy all desires, both mundane and supramundane. Quote, when the disciple who is in the mandala contemplates, parentheses, the forms of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, end parentheses, he instantly attains Kaji with the sublime power of all the Tathagatas and with Vajrasattva, who indwells his mind, entering the excellent essence of Kaji. With all the Tathagatas he instantly sees the circle of light and the rights of all the supernatural powers. Having seen Vajrasattva, or Daiji Kongo, great holder of the Vajra, possessor of virtue, appear in his original body, and having seen the Tathagatas, the Akarya gains all meanings and benefits, achieves all aims, satisfies all desires, and attains the perfection of Vajrasattva and all the Tathagatas. End quote. To perform such a ritual successfully is to realize the Shingon doctrine of the three universals, described in the previous chapter. Firstly, the merging of the sensible forms and true forms of an image is a realization of the identity of the six elements and universal essence. The colors, shiki or forms, of the image are the elements that compose it. Sidebar, those who are watching all the episodes might remember last time, in the previous episode, 264, we were reading from Shobogenzo, and they said that shiki means rules. Here it's saying shiki means forms. I don't think this is a contradiction. As in English, we have many words that have more than one meaning. In the Heart Sutra recital, Setumaka Hanyahara Mita, that one, the word shiki appears many times, and I'm pretty sure the one I'm thinking of, it means forms, but it may have more than one meaning even in that one text. But I just thought I'd point that out. It's an interesting note. So shiki sometimes means rules, sometimes means forms. So far, in Shobogenzo it means rules, and in Shingon it means forms. But in the Heart Sutra, which is one of Dogen's favorite sutras, it also means forms. Okay. As in form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Kufu, shiki, shiki, kufu, something like that. The colors of the image are the elements that compose it. Do you remember the colors? The elements, the shapes and colors? Anyway, and its true form is its universal essence. The simultaneous visualization of the colored form and the true form merges the 6 elements with universal essence. Again, the mandala is Vairocana's dharma, body, and the realization of the inward mental mandala is the merging of the 6 elements that constitute the body and mind of the ritualist with the 6 elements that constitute the body and consciousness of the Tathagata. This is a realization of the unobstructed interpenetration of the 6 elements. Secondly, when he correctly performs a ritual, the sadhaka incorporates the mandala into his body and mind, and thereby realizes the identity of the 4 types of mandala and universal form. The, quote, place of the way, end quote, or dojo, the area in which the mandala is set up, equates the, quote, place of awakening, end quote, or bodhimanda, the site occupied by every Buddha and Bodhisattva on the day of his great awakening. It locates the diamond throne, or Vajrasana, or Kangoza, in Sanskrit and Japanese respectively, the center of the 3,000 great chiliocosms. Oh, chiliocosms. I remember the chiliocosms. That CH is a K sound. It's one of those. Like chrome is a CH, but it's not trome, it's chrome. Chiliocosm, as in kilo, 1,000, cosm, universe, 1,000 universes. Okay, something like that. The midpoint of the universe, wherein all forms are the center of the 3,000 great chiliocosms, okay. The midpoint of the universe, wherein all forms are focused. The dojo equates universal form in that it is coterminous, okay, with the worlds and contains all forms. The dojo, like universal form, is the repository of forms in their 4-fold ordering, the 4 types of mandala. When the sadhaka realizes the mandala laid out in the dojo of his mind, he realizes the interpenetration of the 4 mandalas and identifies his body and mind with universal form. Thirdly, when he correctly performs a ritual, the sadhaka realizes the identity of the 3 mysteries and universal functioning, the, quote, 3 mysteries of the being, end quote. His actions of making hand gestures, chanting sacred invocations, and visualizing images. Dhyana is the word accompanying visualizing images. Interesting. Or jo. My understanding is dhyana is the root of chan, which is the origin of the word Zen, and is most commonly translated as meditation. Here translated as visualizing images. Merging with the Tathagata's 3 mysteries, which are identified with universal functioning. By unifying the actions of his body, speech, and mind with the actions of the body, speech, and mind of the Tathagata, the sadhaka realizes that they are the same as universal functioning, which brings together the actions of all the dharmas in the universe. In summary, when he successfully completes a ritual, the sadhaka perceives that the 6 elements of his body and mind unobstructedly interpenetrate universal essence, and the 6 elements that constitute the cosmos and the Tathagata's dharma body. He unifies his body and mind with universal form, and thus with the mandalas of the worlds. And he realizes that all his actions are those of universal functioning. This threefold realization is the attainment of the highest perfect awakening. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, Anokutara Samyaku Sambodhi in Sanskrit and Japanese, respectively. Well, I noticed that the 3,000-fold great Kiliocosm, or something very similar to that, is a phrase used by Dogen and by, well, presumably Kobo Daishi, but at least Adrian Snodgrass, both coming from Japan. 800, one of them's coming in around 800 Common Era, one coming around 1200 Common Era. And it's not a phrase, we've read 4.5 of these books so far, not a phrase familiar from pre-sectarian early Buddhism. That's just an interesting thing that I've noted, an incomplete realization. At some point in the future, perhaps we will find the introduction of that phrase, maybe even somewhere in the Tipitaka that's behind me. I'm not sure. A couple of the definition discrepancies, like I pointed out, dhyana usually is considered kind of the opposite of visualizing images. Very strict yogi types would say that if you're practicing dhyani and you're visualizing images, you're doing it wrong. I have an old meme of mine, meditation, you're doing it wrong. Silly. Okay. It was interesting seeing the Japanese versions of some of the names of the Vajrayana deities, or Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Vajrasattva. Of course, Vajra in Tibetan is Dorja, and in Japanese is Kongo or Kongoko. So Kongo Sata as Vajrasattva is intuitive, but interesting. I hadn't seen those names before. Anyhow, I hope that you enjoyed today's reading, and of course next time, Buddhist Books 266, we will return to the rules, the rules of order. We read the rules for monks in these books, the rules for nuns in this book, and now we're on the rules of order, the Mahavagga. And so we'll continue with that next time. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful weekend coming up. All right. I will go ahead and do our usual closing here on Buddhist Books Podcast. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Until next time.